but most of them managed to make it through the whole war. The Franks, on the other hand, were not that lucky. After 26 months of hiding, they were betrayed. German police stormed their hiding place, arrested the families, and took them to German police headquarters. From there, they were sent to Camp Westerbork in the north of Holland. In 2001, I had an opportunity to view that site. It was very interesting. Most of it's gone, but it's there as a memorial. Its original function was to provide temporary shelter for the Jewish refugees from Germany. However, when the war broke out, the camp was taken over by the Germans, who used it as a transit camp from which they deported the Jews to Eastern Europe. A month later, the Franks were deported from Westerbork by cattle trains to Auschwitz. Even though the hope for victory by the end of 1944 seemed always just around the corner, actually conditions worsened as the war progressed, and they culminated in the famine known as the Dutch Hunger Winter, and that was in 1945. During this time, the average person consumed only 400 calories a day. Quite a diet. People sought food everywhere, in the streets as well as the surrounding countryside. Anything edible was picked up. People felt fortunate even if they found a rotten potato. Many collapsed from exhaustion and died in the streets. Others became so fatigued during their searches that they were not able to return home before the curfew. They died in barns or hiding places. Older people who lacked the strength to go out and search for food often died in bed of starvation. My family bartered many possessions for food during the famine. My father walked or rode on the rims of his bicycle because there were no more tires, out to the countryside, bartering anything that he thought farmers might use or want. Sometimes it was a rope or a tool, linens, later more valuable items such as jewelry, including my parents' wedding rings, which were actually never replaced until about 20 years later. During that last horrible winter of the war, my mother was pregnant with me. Because of her condition, our family received a few extra rations, which probably helped them survive. But yet, my mother weighed less at the end of her pregnancy than she did at the beginning. My mother's labor began late in the afternoon on March 6th. They couldn't decide whether to take the 30-minute walk to the hospital or wait until morning. Can't even imagine walking to the hospital. 5 in the afternoon, they decided to go ahead and go, and they left my sister home alone. When my father had not yet returned by 6:45, she became frantic because at any time after curfew, which was 7 o'clock, he could be detained or picked up by the Gestapo. At 7 on the dot, he came running into the house, and of course they were both greatly relieved. The next morning, my father went out to call the hospital. The big news was I had been born at 2 a.m. on March 7th, which was my sister's birthday. For my family, my birth was the beginning of the end. Liberation took place 2 months later. Then, after 9 more years of saving, planning, and making endless arrangements, they emigrated to the United States, where they felt assured that neither they nor their daughters would ever again have to experience war or the loss of freedom. What I realized again when I read Anne's diary was how close the Franks had come to a happy ending. Liberation at last, you can almost hear her say it. Instead, her mother died in Auschwitz 3 weeks before the Russians liberated it. Anne and Margot died in Bergen-Belsen of typhus in March of '45, the month that I was born, and 2 months before the end of the war. Otto Frank was the only one to survive, and he published his daughter's diary. At this time, we can consider the wasted life of a budding writer, but not without the overpowering realization that we must multiply Anne's tragedy by 6 million to appreciate the full horror. Anne Frank believed that people are really good at heart. We all believe that most of the time. We must remember, though, that there are exceptions, as in the case of Hitler or other fascist leaders, past and present, who are racist and cruel, who maintain power through force, and who glorify war and violence. That is why we must keep telling the stories, so that they will never be tolerated again. We must remember, because memory is finally all we own. Thank you.
All right, good. That was just beautiful. Thank you for sharing with all of us. And we now have our closing hymn. It is number 159. This is my song. Please stand as you are willing and able and join in. We have a guest speaker. Please welcome Richard Franklin.
Tomorrow being Memorial Day, I would like to make a little bit, just add a little bit to it. Danny B, age 15, just had to get in. Bobby John from Alabama, the first time he wore new shoes was when the Army gave them to him. And Willie Ray from Missouri, good Boy Scout. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country. And Emerson M., a little Navajo Indian from Church Rock, New Mexico, 5'2", stuffed his brother's shoes with cardboard to Gideon. We honor and remember your brief presence with us, your spirit, your hopes, dreams, and love we carry forward. You are part and one of us all.
Thank you, Richard, and I'm sure many of us have names and faces that we think about on these days too. I'm going to extinguish the chalice and invite you all to read together with me the West Valley mission statement, which is also in your order of service. We agree to provide a safe place to celebrate diversity, draw inspiration for living better lives, foster social and environmental justice, and compassionately support each other in our spiritual searches. And our closing words today are coming from Jim Ray, and I invite him to the stage.
Love the socks.
Yes, Memorial Day is a day to remember soldiers that have died and other loved ones that we remember on this day. If there is a name that you would like to honor, please call out that name.
Clara Ramirez, my grandmother, she passed away on Memorial Day.
Madison Gerson, Children College of World War II veterans,
Tim Sloan from Korea.
George Johnson, from the Navy in Pearl Harbor.
Arthur Fuller, my brother in the Navy.
All the students of my father when he was at the United States School of Music in December 1941 who perished on the USS Arizona.
Thank you.
Hans Wagner, my father, who died in 1944 in Louisiana as a German railroad engineer.
Lieutenant Dwayne Martin, Vietnam War buddy, died in a helicopter, returned by the North Vietnamese.
Thank you. The sacrifices of our military men and women allow our freedom to reign. I am grateful for knowing that I have a safe place as I wake to a new day and the right to speak my mind. For the dreams I strive to reach, for the love I'm free to give. For laughter shared with family and friends, and for the security and peace of mind that all is safe and sound. For growing, sharing, hoping, caring. Memorial Day is a time for thanks and remembrance.
Red, white, chocolate.
What's our next group?
The third one of June is probably like the one after.